Thanks for joining in, you guys. And today we're talking to my good friend, Paul Sletten, who's been with me. Now, it's 25 years I've been in this industry, and I've seen a lot of stuff. I'm not the smartest guy. One of the things I learned the hard way is you just surround yourself with really smart people who can help you, and you stay focused on the things that you're good at. And so I'm only good at a couple things, but Paul, you're really good on the transitions and all the stuff that I'm just terrible on. And today we're going to be talking about successful and unsuccessful transitions. But now you're my guy when it comes to this. I've come to you for years, but if somebody's listening to the podcast for the first time, I want them to know who Paul Sletten is. So tell us who you are first.
I am the owner of a business called the Sletten Group, and we work exclusively with dentists. We've done transitions in 50 states and all over Canada as well. And what we do is work with dentists, and we help them plan and implement transitions. I grew up in a dental family. My dad was a dentist in a small town in Minnesota. And my brother is an orthodontist. My nephew's an orthodontist. My other nephew's a general dentist. Our son married a dentist. So we have lots of people in the family. I've always been attracted to the dental profession, not to be a dentist, but I find that it's just incredibly fun to be able to work with our clients at really important times in their lives when they need to plan and implement a transition and they really need it to go well.
Yeah. And you're going to take us through the ins and outs of that because this is just one of those sticky situations. Now, I'm a little biased, so I'm going to have to control my own emotions around this because people get into, partnerships for the wrong reasons. They go, oh, I'm going to get a partner. And I'm like, okay, so how many patients do you have? Well, I have 1,200. Like, you're not really ready for, well, why do you want a partner? Well, I want to grow the practice so I can take more time off. And I'm like, okay, that's not really a good reason. So, but before people listen to me talk, I want to ask you so many questions, but let's talk about successful and unsuccessful transitions. Why are there so many? Now, first of all, is it true on the statistics? People always talk, gosh, it's 70 to 90% of them fail in some fashion. Is that kind of an inflated statistic, or is it abnormally high first and then tell us why?
I think it's high, but I think it's way over half are unsuccessful. Let's talk about unsuccessful transitions first. The biggest reason by far is that they don't have a plan. When a practice owner wants to transition a practice, either by adding another dentist at an appropriate time, as you said, or transitioning out of the practice, everything flows from the plan of the owner. So if the owner is unsure of how to do it, when to do it, and those kinds of things, then the other doctor who's under consideration for joining the practice can't make their plans either. So It's critically important that the owner have a plan, and so often they're using their friends or their colleagues' plan and contracts and haven't thought through their own issues. There's another thing that's really important, and that is there needs to be a connection between their practice transition plan and their life plans. They have to be connected. They have to be congruent. It has to fit.
Right.
A lot of times they just kind of slap them together. They meet somebody at a dental meeting, and the person makes a good impression, and so we ought to talk further, and they do talk a little bit further, and the next thing you know, there's an invitation to come into the practice and get on a path to partnership at some point. It's just miraculous if something like that would work.
Yeah.
Some do, but the vast majority don't. So you just flip all these issues around, and the successful ones begin with the owner and spouse or significant other having a plan.
Yeah.
We just had a couple here last Friday who came in and did a life plan with us and a practice transition plan, and we worked together all day And when they left, they felt really good because they had something now that they can go home and implement and work with, and we can guide them along. So you have to have a plan, and you have to have a timetable.
Yeah.
How many people do we ask, how much longer are you going to practice and at what pace? And the typical answer is 5 years. And then you talk to some of them 5 years later, and you ask them the same question, and they say 5 years.
Right.
And so on. And so what they're doing is they're just running laps. And with no finish line or no tape at the end, that's not fun. And then the practice starts to go sour. It begins to plateau, and it can't sustain a plateau, so it begins to go into decline. And now you're losing value for your practice. And so there are really some downside issues to deal with without a plan.
Yeah. Now go back to this, because you're bringing up something that people don't talk about a lot. It's one thing to have a plan. I think everyone would agree is you got to have a plan. And then, it's amazing how many of them don't. And then the second thing is a life plan, because I actually would consider that one even more important. There are so many, and I'm not going to throw all of them under the bus, but there's a lot of proposition now in dentistry. And you know this, if you're a dentist listening, somebody can come in and buy your practice for 51% of your practice up to 90% of your practice. And the cool thing is you can still be an owner. We're going to take all the headaches away from you, and you can just focus on dentistry. Well, what you don't understand, my friends, is I now own the business if I did that. And if you don't want to work on a Saturday, too bad. You're going to work on a Saturday because I own the business. And you're going to go, no, I didn't agree to any of this type of a thing. So I agree with you, and I'm probably making that bigger than I am, but the truth of it is that
it's big.
It's a big decision. Part of the reason you became a dentist is so that you could enjoy some freedom. Now, there's a lot of layers to this unsuccessful thing. Is it true? People that need the money of the sale, that's different than somebody who doesn't need the money of the sale when they're selling the practice. Do you see that as a huge discrepancy?
That's a huge issue, Kirk. Yes. If somebody's in healthy financial condition, a seller, for example, at a closing table, you've got a really wonderful opportunity to put a win-win outcome together. If somebody comes to a closing table in a needy position, look out, buyer, because they just absolutely need to sell it, but they also need to stick around and keep working. And that can raise other really nasty issues, because the patients need to start moving over to the new owner so they can pay the overhead expenses and begin to prosper. But they won't do so readily with the old owner in there.
Yeah. Now, this is a big deal. When you're looking at transitioning your practice or bringing in a partner, what do we have to do to make this work? Like, if I'm a young dentist listening to this, I know I have to have a plan. I've also got to have a life plan. I would imagine our core values have to line up. You know what I mean? What if the prospective partner has a crazy spouse? That could potentially be a hazard, don't you think?
Can we go until midnight on that one?
Maybe we could open a glass of wine on that one. Is there a crazy test? You can just say, okay, you're going to have to take this test. And if you fail, that means you're crazy. And because a lot of times we get the smoke screen and we don't see that they're crazy until 6 months later. Right. Oh, here's another one, Paul. I love this one. No, we're going to be great partners together because our last name both ended with G, and we sat next to each other in dental school, and we're godparents to each other's kids, and we're just been best. We drank beer together in dental school. So this is going to go on forever, and we're going to live happily ever after. I'm sure you hear that one too.
I've seen that movie a lot of times. And,
okay.
And, it's simple, but it's complex. Mm-hmm. It's to put a good transition together. You just hit on something really, really important. You've got to first look at when we go in and look at a practice, we look at all the numbers and the financials and the activity numbers and things like that. but we also try to determine what the culture of that practice feels like, and in doing so, you learn what the core values of the owner are, and then you interview the team, and you learn all kinds of things there. That's by far the best way, by the way, to find out about the crazy spouse. I don't have any other tricks up my sleeve on that issue, but it's so important to do the best match you can. For example, if you own a practice and you are in practice for 35 years and you're ready to transition, you and your team have been teaching your patients what to expect when they come to your practice for care for all 35 years. The new incoming dentist who will become the owner needs to know what those expectations are and what you've been teaching people to expect, because they're going to have the exact same expectations of the new dentist. And so we try to uncover those things too, and guide and coach the incoming doctor as to what they're going to have to do and how they're going to have to be in the culture to enhance it. Without that, they're unarmed and they get bushwhacked.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, any other potential red flags that you would say is like, first of all, I think one of the things you got to do is, and again, I'm asking you, but like, see, we got to figure out if this practice is even ready for partnership. People don't, and I'm getting older now, Paul, so my filter's going away. So I don't care as much anymore. I mean, I care about people, but I don't care about what I say. People go, oh, partnerships are like a marriage. I'm like, no, they're not. They're 10 times harder than a marriage. I've been married for 22 years. I love my wife. She can put up with my crap. Partnerships are 10 times harder because there's people attached to all this stuff. And, sometimes your partner can't put up with the kind of stuff that you put up with. And it's a lot more complex than we think, right?
It really is. We've put a lot of successful partnerships together. I've also been called on to come into a situation and help take partnerships apart. And when they have that need to bring somebody in to help with that, there's already a toxic relationship in the partnership. I've seen partners that have not spoken with each other, just two doctors in the office and the team. They have not said good morning or go to hell or anything to one another in 6 months. And there's electricity in the air. It's just devastating. Then you start having staff turnover and all kinds of other issues that come into it. So you've got to be really, really careful. You've got to do personality profiles. We have something we call a personal profile, which is something I put together that asks questions about what's important to you. What are the 5 most valuable assets you have? What are the 5 most significant events that have occurred in your life? When did they happen, and how do they impact you? And we start getting insights in addition to just looking at the numbers into who the players are. And there are people that just absolutely don't fit, in a certain practice situation.
Yeah. And, when your values don't line up with another person, it never, ever, ever, ever. I mean, you could try to make it work, but somebody's going to have to compromise who they are in order for it to work. Or we, like you said, maybe we just don't talk for 6 months, and hopefully we'll keep it copacetic that way in a very disturbing way. But like, here's another thing, Paul, you've been doing this for a while, and we notice these trends, the trends now, all these young dentists have this, and I don't know what we could attribute that to. Maybe it's just the marketing of DSOs or what we see in publications. You see everybody moving to quote unquote group practice. And so we've got a lot of people that are in the marketplace going, that's the direction it's going anyway. And so first of all, why is that trend happening? And then the other thing is there's an underlying problem here. These, group practice requires a whole different skill set. You thought it was hard owning a practice by yourself. You need another layer of skill sets to deal with, 20 or 30 people. And let me preface that. People always say, oh, Kirk, because I have 13 team members, they're like, oh, don't you want like 25? I'm like, hell no. I mean, even Jesus had staff problems. You know what I mean? So there's a whole nother layer that when you add people, you've got to have like great leadership teams in place. So let's talk first. Let's go back to the group practice thing. Why are so many dentists pretty much coming with that pre-existing notion, I got to do group practice? And then what are the skill sets and what do we need to know about group practice before we start putting our tone?
I think there's a lot of influence peddlers in the dental profession right now who are outlining the people in DSOs and who are pushing group practice and things like that. And then the dentist finds out after they've sold the practice but are still in it that it's not at all the way it used to be, and they really get stressed and unhappy and so on. So I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of people, young people who are saying, and older dentists who are saying, wouldn't it be nice if I didn't have to manage and lead and run the business and understand the business and so on. And so they just delegate that to someone else, and that doesn't work. So, I mean, it takes some of the burden away, but it adds other burdens, that's for certain. I still, Kirk, I'm a huge believer that private care practice is still strong and has a good future.
Yeah.
There are a lot of people that are saying that the solo practice will be a dinosaur within 3 years, and some will. But I don't believe that. Not if we see a lot of practices like that really, really thriving.
Yeah, absolutely. And so whoever's giving that data, there are trends, but even the DSO big ones, even the biggest names in DSO always say this: private care market will be strong. They're actually starting to compete with each other now. And the amount of cash you need when you have multiple people don't understand. Growth sucks cash. Like when you grow, you need huge amounts of cash, because when you have a dental practice, because you got a group practice and we do $500,000 a month now, all you need is 7 snow days to go, that's not fun. And you start eating huge amounts of reserve. So don't get me wrong. I mean, there's a viable model in both directions, but there will always be a market for fee-for-service. And if you're a dentist listening to, you got to temper your own thought process. I mean, hell, we thought dentists were going to die when fluoride came onto the scene. That never happened. The world was supposed to end twice in 2012. Dentists have been constantly proclaiming it's the end. Well, I got news for you, my friends. It's not the end. The world's population is skyrocketing. People are living longer, and dentists are going to be busier than ever. And so you're going to be busy. The coolest part about dentistry is you got to just pick how you practice. So I got to be careful, because I love it when you can call your own shots and have a good life. But the hope today is just really articulate what the challenges are, because you're the expert in this. Is like, what is group practice? Go back to the skill set. So one more layer, like the skill set thing in a group practice. What else would I need to know if I'm a young dentist considering group practice? What skills do I need?
If you're a young dentist considering group practice, you need to be aware of something. If you have a 4-doctor partnership, that practice is not managed or run by 4 doctors. There's almost always one doctor who emerges as the keeper of the flame and the visionary.
Right.
And partnerships like that tend to work very, very well. If you had a management by committee, you'd never make any decisions, and you certainly wouldn't make many good decisions. So some of the skills, how do you work with so many people around? What do you know about an ideal candidate profile when you're going to go out and hire somebody for a role or a position in the practice, starting with a doctor, but including team members? What would an ideal candidate profile look like for that role that you need to put someone into, and start from there, and then really take some time to identify that, so you're not just grabbing the next one who comes along.
Yeah, but I know it can fix all that, Paul. I can fix all that. You know how I do that? I'll
Nah.
just have my son come into the practice. You know what I mean? Like, or I'll
Yeah.
get my brother to come into the practice. Because when we're family, all those problems go away. Now I'm being facetious, but like talk about the next layer of it. So we're talking about group practice and partnerships. And please don't think I'm trying to scare you away. We're just preparing you for the realities of it.
Yeah.
But family, now it's hard enough being married. Like I said, you got to work hard at that. Then you add a partner. That's another one. But now try to create a partnership with a family member. What kind of complexity is that? And what do we need to know about family members coming into the practice?
So the typical response to that is if a family member is going to be coming into a practice, it's easy for them to say, we don't need to do all the work prior to you coming on board because we're family. We know each other. We have the same values. And so we don't need to do all the work. The reality is that they need to do twice as much work because so much more is at risk, meaning long-term relationships and so on. I'll give you an example of what can happen unless it's addressed. So a father brings in a daughter. At one point in time, he was father, she was daughter. Now they're colleague and colleague working together. So they're equal. As soon as a conflict arises, father takes charge and takes over and reverts to the old behavior he had in parenting, or daughter becomes the 12-year-old whiner and takes that role, and now you're stuck. You've really got some problems, and so when I brought Pam, my daughter, who's a partner in my business, into our business, even though I'd done a ton of family transition planning and implementation of those plans, I went out and got another consultant to come in and facilitate it because I knew I couldn't facilitate my own transition with my daughter.
Right.
There was way too much at stake. So there are so many issues. We could talk half a day on it.
Yeah. And, the old adage is there's nothing kills a family faster than going into business together. I have a copy of a letter from a dentist, and here's what it says. Please send me your last payment, Dad. That's all it says. And that's the last time they ever communicated. Now, again, this might sound like a little bit of a fear thing, but that is exactly what you wouldn't want. There are a lot of expectations that get failed with money, workload. And I feel like everything's got to be laid out. In the event of your death, as a partner, here's exactly what would happen. And so that goes back to the plan thing, is all of these things, and having an outside expert is key. That's like somebody saying, no, I sell and buy my own house. I don't need a realtor. I don't need any of that. No, you need somebody who's not emotionally involved to point out all of those things, because you're not going to naturally go there, right?
Absolutely true. Kirk, we there's something I want to share. We had a wonderful client, and we were working with him in putting a long-term plan together for him and his practice and his marriage and so on. And he told me one day that his son was going to be joining the practice, coming into the practice 2 years from the time that he told me.
Okay.
And I said, there's no way your practice is ready for a second doctor, much less in 2 years. He said, but I have to, because I promised my son when he went to dental school that he could come in with me. And by the way, I've got another son who just got into dental school, and so he'll be coming in 4 years.
Wow.
I said, do you realize what you're talking about? And the mother worked in the practice as the office manager. That was a very difficult situation. So I had a team meeting. I facilitated a team meeting, and the team spoke up on this issue and said, if the oldest son comes into the practice, we're all gone. If the youngest son comes into the practice in 4 years, we adore him and really respect him, and that'll be good for the practice. So you've got so many layers of issues in a situation like that. On the flip side, if you just put a good plan together and then get some outside help, sometimes a psychologist or a therapist is required, in my opinion, to discuss certain issues, and other times just addressing them with a third party facilitator gets the job done as well.
Yeah, and I completely agree with that. I think it's always great to bring out an NXI. You know, first of all, think about the hundreds of thousands or possibly even millions of dollars you're going to save when you have an expert. And that's all they do is arrange the plan, help you develop the plan and execute the plan, instead of saying, no, I can save money. No, you're going to you're going to lose a lot of stomach lining in this whole process. And that's really, really important. The question becomes talk a little bit more about successful partnerships. Cause I know, we've talked a little bit about unsuccessful, and it's so funny you mentioned the father and the two sons. I must keep bumping into them every month because there isn't a month that goes by that I don't hear that scenario. Yeah, I got a son and my daughter and another, and I got a nephew coming in too. And they're all built on expectations that people are going to come in and go to work and it's just going to be a nice thing. So that's a challenge, but let's talk about things that you see that are successful in partnerships, and clear cut, signals of success.
The partners who are willing and able to meet with one another with agendas in hand on a routine basis, housekeeping meetings that are more brief, as required. But sometimes you need to take a day away from the practice and talk about the practice and talk about the partnership relationship and the roles that each partner plays and things like that. So a commitment to really communicating well with each other is a place to begin.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So one other piece to this. So let's say we do have some good groundwork, good core values, good possibility. The practice is healthy. It's actually making a decision from a position of strength where a dentist is like, I have way too many patients and I've been good financially. Now I want to take this younger doc, whether it be a family member or a potential new doc that's an associate. I want you to talk about the skill set. Like, how do we do an elegant handoff to some of these responsibilities to a great candidate so we can grow them maybe on the fast track to a higher level functioning thing? Because I would imagine, Paul, we can't wait 30 years for this doc to develop all these skills. This doc has got to come in and develop some of these skill sets right away.
They sure do. And that's why when you're interviewing and vetting candidates, you really need to get to know them. I like to know all about their personal background. I like to know about their family. I like to know about the community they grew up in. If a practice owner has a really strong work ethic and a lot of drive and fire in the belly and everything else, the incoming doctor has to mirror those things. They don't have to be a clone of that doctor, not by any means, but they have to have those qualities. And they have to be good at relationships, and they have to want to learn about the business and how to spot trends and what to do about those kinds of things that happen and occur.
Yeah.
And they have to feel financially rewarded. But boy, partners in partnerships really end up working really hard because they're so much more complex. And they have so many more team members.
Right. And, this is for another podcast because I have so many questions on the partnership relationship. But another thing that I hear consistently from partners that have tried this is like the eat what you kill formula. Now that exists if you have your own practice. You only eat what you kill, which is you're only going to take a certain amount of salary. But there are some docs that come in and go, no, I get 50% of it. Well, your production isn't where mine is yet. How can I afford to pay you 50% of the profits? All of that stuff has got to be spelled out, and it's got to be on the healthy side. One more thing. I'm going to add one more thing. So I want you to comment on that.
Okay.
And while this is not my area of expertise, Paul, what you're talking about, it's crazy important. Like, you got to listen for things. And I would encourage listeners, if you're talking to anyone, I don't care if it's a team member, And I don't care if you're a young dentist talking to an older dentist. When somebody has a consistently unhealthy relationship with their past, it doesn't mean that they had a bad, like people have had bad pasts, but they have a healthy they're like, it happened to me, but it made me human. But when somebody's constantly telling you they've been screwed over their whole life by everybody, when they have a bad relationship with their past, they always, and I do mean always, have a bad relationship with their future. So don't think that you're going to be the person that saves them from all of their continuous troubles because we're now partners. So I don't even know if that's a question.
Well, we all encounter people who tease us with their potential.
Right.
What I mean by that is they are just magnificent on their good days. They just don't have that many of them. And so you get into a situation with a person like that, and I've been there, where you begin to care much more about them being successful than they do.
Wow.
And that's a dead end street. You're not going to win that one.
Right.
So there are things that you have to notice in that regard as well. You need people to, we've got so many generational differences too. That's another topic entirely. But you really need to get to know them and what their thinking is, and the size of school loan debt for young doctors interested in buying into a practice is a big topic as well.
Yeah. And then what are some of the basics, like financially? Obviously we got to talk money as partners. We have to have it clearly outlined. There's got to be rules around money. What are some of the basics? And again, we'll do another podcast on the details, but the basics around money, putting two people together.
When one of the most important topics is how are they going to share income and expense, right? And so what we do in a general practice, the model is, it's a very successful model. If it's a 2-doctor practice, and the new person is buying in, what the operating agreement that they will have will instruct them to do is that they will most likely share hygiene according to ownership percentage, hygiene net revenues. But when it comes to doctor production, you total the doctor production. And if one person is producing 55% of doctor production and the other 45%, the shared expenses by the 55% producer, he pays 55% of those, and the other doctor pays 45%. That'll eventually shift later. As the older doctor begins to cut back and phases out of the practice over time, that'll totally flip around. So it's fair at the beginning, it's fair all the way through the partnership.
Okay. That's awesome. Now there's so many questions, and I know I don't get you forever today because we'll come back and revisit these things. But if I'm a doctor who's like thinking about selling their practice, could I call you and just vomit into your ear and go, Paul, I'm thinking about all these things. And, I'll say this because I know this much about you is you always do the right thing. Even in certain sales, you've said to me, look, I know that person's offering more, but that's a better fit for the practice. And that's one thing I really appreciate you. But can you talk about the scope of your services? Like, what do you do?
Yeah.
Do you help me find an associate? Do you structure an associate? Do you help me build? Like, what if I want to transition? What if I'm one of those people you mentioned today? Can you help me?
Yeah. Sure. Our range of services include helping people put tailored, customized plans together, of course, for their own futures. But it also includes, we do practice valuations. We've done thousands of them. You need to know what the current fair market value of your practice. So that's often a place to begin. We help people put a plan together. Sometimes they're not ready to implement the plan because the timetable agreed upon says that they're going to start in 3 years. So we will then help them do a search and placement. And we provide those services where we do the screening. It's a collaborative process with the team and the doctors, of course, but we do the vetting and screening and interviewing and processing of candidates. And as real bona fide quality candidates emerge, we will introduce them to the doctors and to the practice, and they'll get deeply into the process. Our process, by the way, is a team-based process. We really understand and know that the team needs to be aware of what's going on and ideally should participate in the process. They're the ones who are going to have to make it work.
Right.
And so why not have them in once you have your plan identified and together? We help put partnerships together. We help people grow by acquisition, and just about any kind of transition you can think of, we do. Yeah. And we help them with the contracts. I'm not an attorney, and we absolutely need the attorneys involved in the model. But by the time we go to the attorney, we pretty well got a package that we can hand them.
Yeah, I love it.
So that's what we do.
Yeah. So where could we send it? You know, I'm telling you guys as listeners, you got to check out Paul's stuff. I mean, Paul, you're a good guy. You've done right by like everybody we've sent to. But if I'm listening, how do I find you? Where do I go? Like, how do I call you?
Yeah, go to the website, the Sletten Group, Inc., and find us there. Call me directly. And that's unusual, but I'm happy with that. My cell phone is 303-902-9953. I have those kind of conversations all the time. We're happy to have conversations and really spend some time listening prior to asking anybody to commit to working with us. Sometimes it's very appropriate. Other times it isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. I want to have you back and go through the details of how I bring on an associate. Like, how do I even structure that? I can see I have a million questions on that one. Some of the healthy and unhealthy disciplines you've seen that make it work, because you know as well as I do, this is not a fun thing for a lot of dentists to do. And you can do all you can, and there's some instances it still doesn't work out. So I want to put our listeners and our community in the highest percentage range of, like, if they decide to do this, they're using at least all the best practices. So can I voluntold you? I call it voluntolding. I'm just going to tell you to come back. But
I will be delighted.
Paul, you're the best. Thanks for being with me today, buddy. I really appreciate it. Thank you guys for listening to the Best Practices Show. Make sure you check out Paul's group. And then Paul recently did a masterclass for us on Accidental U that we're still getting great feedback. I got great feedback about it even this morning. This is a serious issue. It's a very important one to your future. And so transitions cannot be taken lightly. They have to be really well thought out. And, you know, don't try to do it yourself. There's a lot of experience and a lot of lessons here. So thanks again, Paul. I really appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you. Good to see you, Kirk.
You guys have a great day. Thanks for listening.